Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Caregiver's World. Today, I want to have a conversation about difficult conversations, pun intended. These are conversations that we like to leave for the very last minute. So, I am thinking back to when our loved one was diagnosed. I am remembering having to think of planning for the future and everything that it entails. I remember feeling so lost and with such uncertainty that only until now can I comprehend our feelings. Feeling overwhelmed, fearful, overloaded by so much information, and grasping that our level of responsibility had multiplied. It's like we skipped being parents to our own children and instead went from us being children ourselves to being adults and then skipped over to taking care of our loved ones. I don't know what the case it is for you, if you have children of your own or not, but if you do, then put the kids right in the middle after adulthood and then add on top of that the extra level of responsibility for taking care of your loved one. In any case, it was such an unnerving level of responsibility. I feel a great empathy for anyone who chooses to be a caregiver or falls into the situation of doing so. Even more so for younger people, people who find themselves in a similar position, but a much younger age, and perhaps with a different level of understanding of life and responsibility. I want to go back in time and trying to gather some of that overwhelming information. And especially if you're new to caregiving, I want to extend my hand and help you. If I can dumb it down, some of the scary lingo and situations that you may need to prepare for, or to help a person you're caring for if you have that level of familiarity. I can tell you that a lot of the things that I am sharing with you now are going to be the same things that you're going to hear doctors and attorneys and people who are on the outside looking in with a significant level of detachment. But I think it makes a difference when you hear it from someone who has been there themselves. There is a difference, there is a level of compassion and understanding of how challenging some of these matters are. So let's go over in particular to the legal ones, the legal matters, what you need to prepare for ASAP and the why. I'm sharing on the post a link to a list that was created by the Alzheimer's Association. I'm going to be sharing a few things. But this list, I'm not going to go over it the way they have it. You're going to see the link and you're more than welcome to obviously go in and investigate yourself. But I'm highlighting the most important ones from my own experience with my loved one. So let's start with healthcare directives, also known as living will. It is a legal document that outlines your healthcare wishes should you become unable to speak for yourself. It is a document that you dictate, preferably before you lose your ability and your cognition to decide for yourself what you would like. There is something also called a healthcare proxy. The healthcare proxy is actually a person that you designate to make healthcare decisions for you in the event you become unable to make the decisions for yourself. So the healthcare proxy is a person, let's say your sister, your brother, your husband, whatever, that will carry out your healthcare directives. There is another document, and I know I'm going through these a little bit more rapidly, but this is just breaking it down for you and making you think of what else you need and what else you need to think of. There is the very famous power of attorney, because not everyone out there is good-hearted and out to do good. It is imperative that your carers' good name, credit, and reputation gets respected and left alone. There is two different types of power of attorney. There is the medical power of attorney, which is specifically with medical directives and and steps, of which I don't know much of. And then there is the power of attorney for legal matters. And again, I'm including the link to an article by alzheimers.gov that provides more guidance as to these particular power of attorney and more specific legal lingo. And it also gives you a lot of help for planning after a dementia diagnosis. But basically, the power of attorney, if you have, specifically thinking of the one for legal matters, if you have someone try to manipulate the person that you're caring for of their good credit, name, or reputation, there's a limitation of what that person can do, like try to open a business on their behalf, try to lease a car on their using their credit and name, or basically try to coercing your loved one into using their information. All of those things will be void, because if you have the power of attorney, or you have somebody that you have designated to have that power of attorney, those things become void. I don't know the exact details on that, so please consult an attorney. I just know that is an extra, very important level of protection for the person that you are caring for. So again, alzheimers.gov is the article that I read, and it has some of this information. But I think an attorney that focuses on family matters is the right person to ask for more help and information. And then the last one, and I know, again, this conversation is brief, but I think it's short and sweet when it comes to the things that we may not want to do, are the very feared DNI and DNR. As much as we hate to think about these situations where do not intubate and or do not resuscitate could come into play, I think, how would it be if it were me, instead of me being the caregiver? What if I was the patient, the carer? If I have extreme phobia or a very firm dislike or personal reason to never have a tube down my throat, where it's so extreme that I rather die than being intubated, then you need to stipulate that. You need to be able to have that wish respected. So the DNI is the do not intubate, the DNR is the do not resuscitate. And these are things that doctors need to make sure that they respect. Again, your healthcare directive probably covers that, and your healthcare proxy needs to know of all of these documents. The DNI and the DNR are documents that are signed, they're filled out, they're signed in front of a notary, they're notarized, and your healthcare proxy basically carries those documents with them wherever they go, in case something were to happen to you, or in this case to your loved one that you're caring for, so that they know the limitations of the care that they can bring and still be able to give you the best care and the best attention, whilst respecting the person that you're caring for, their wishes. So these are the most common and obvious legal matters that I can think of. It is very recommended that legal matters happen and are filed sooner rather than later. I think then more important than the what is the when. And especially in cases of dementia, you need to have these documents filed and approved prior to your loved one having a level of dementia so far down the road that they no longer can be trusted because the judgment fails. Start getting ready with thinking about the conversations. Take the time that you need to feel comfortable, but know that you're fighting against the clock right now. And so you want to think about it, how to best approach it, and then start having the conversations with your loved one, and make sure that you are being very patient and loving, but at the same time iterate the importance of having these conversations as soon as possible and file those documents as soon as possible, because their judgment and their cognition is going to start falling very quickly, depending on the case of dementia that they have, the type of dementia, depending on as well the if there is just that one diagnosis or a couple. It could be an aggressive case of dementia, it could be a slightly more gentle that will take even longer. Either way, you don't know. And just because you have a dementia diagnosis doesn't mean that you know everything right away. Anyone that has dealt with dementia knows that doctors need several iterations. They need to do PET scans and MRI scans, and then the year after do them all over again, and then the year after do them all over again, because the first one is basically setting the stage, and then they need to see the progression. So if you sit around and waiting for those annual checkups, you could be doing a disfavor to yourself and to your loved one, because sometimes the dementia can happen faster than anticipated. One last suggestion that I do have, and it might be a little over the top for some of you, but in my personal experience, I think it can only help. When you have had the conversations, even the initial ones, and you are ready to start getting going with these documents, set like one more conversation, but this time record it on video. Let your loved one know that you're doing it. Let your loved one know that you're doing it in case there is a situation in the future where he or she may not remember having this discussion, and that can set the stage for a really bad afternoon or a really bad moment. Instead of enjoying the company of you and your loved ones together, you're now having to justify your actions. So if you have this, if you have set the stage for a good communication and conversation with your loved one, then it would be more fulfilling to do this together. Let them know that they're voluntarily doing this. Let them feel that they're choosing to do this, right? So you definitely want to do this before it gets really bad. And in the recording, make sure that you're telling the date, set the date, the time, where you are, your name, and let them say, just like basically when you go to a doctor's office, they want to make sure that everyone is aware of what is going on in the moment in their lives. So it's also a reiteration to them saying, I know who I am, I know where I am, I know the date, I know the year. And then say, we're having this conversation so that we can go on record and explaining, in case for future reasons me, the loved one, forgets that, yes, I consented to this documentation and no one is coercing me. I'm doing this out of my own will. That honestly, that video footage can truly, truly save you from a really bad moment of delusion that they may have, which there's a very high percentage in my mind that it will happen if it is dementia, the diagnosis. So I think that that's a really good time to do it. I think it's also a really great idea to record a little bit of everything. So you're trying to create memories, right? So create memories. Not everything has to be a video about something that could potentially bring calmness and stillness to your loved one, but maybe you could also record happy moments and little funny moments if you have any. And maybe not so much for yourself afterwards. You may not want to remember those if it brings you pain. But if they're having a bad day at one moment, or if they're having some moment of anxiety and you've made a funny video of the two of you together, then maybe play that, because it can really make a difference. I know with with our loved one, we made some funny videos on Snapchat, And it was one of those absolutely wonky and crazy effects where you look completely distorted or completely silly or completely crazy or like an alien, or like, you had three heads, I don't know, stuff like that. And I remember recording our loved one with the filter, and her laughing uncontrollably. And I just thought it was funny. I saved it, and months later, she was having a day where she was having a hard time, and I pretended that nothing was happening, nothing that she was saying was hurtful, because she doesn't mean to be hurtful. And I said, "Oh my God, look at this! Look what I found!" And I started playing the video, and she then was able to come down, come out of her moment of anxiety or depression or whatever she was feeling at the moment. And then she was able to realize what I was doing and why I was doing it. And, she thanked me. But it's not a matter about being thanked. It's more of having the opportunity to easing up their load, their emotional load, how they feel when they realize how bad their memory is, and the constant repetition, and understand, have a moment of realization of the reality for us who are caring for her, rather than her in her own world. She's in la la land, to a certain degree, so she doesn't see the seriousness and the impact that it is in our lives. So that's just a little bit of unrequested advice, but I think it would come to play very good moments ahead if you make photos and videos part of your repertoire while taking care of them. So I think this is it for today. I'm sorry if I went through the legal a little too fast, but to me, the most important parts really are the power of attorney, the healthcare directives and the healthcare proxy, and the DNR and the DNI. That's the big ones for me. For now, this is all I have. This is all I'm leaving you with. Two links: Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's.gov, and hope that these 4 bullet points that I'm basically discussing here are enough to get your brain going without feeling overwhelmed. You can worry about planning and home caring or at a different time. Today, let's just, I think we have given you enough to think about with just some of the basic legal documents to work on. I hope this is helpful. I hope you find this of use, and wish you guys a wonderful week ahead. Let's keep sharing the knowledge, anything that you know. For now, thank you so much for your time and participation. I wish you a wonderful week ahead. Take care.